Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Victor's Corner for Wednesday, June 5th, 2019. I am your host, Victor Omoayo, and this week I am doing a solo episode because Carl, unfortunately, was not available this week. He's off busy cosplaying as Nia Jax's double knee braces, so I am here to hold down the fort this week. And yes, as you can see, I am back on Facebook Live. Eddie Ortiz has joined the chat. Thank you, my friend. What's up? And yes, this means that I am back on Facebook. Now, let me explain what went down. You see, YouTube. YouTube was it's a great platform as far as video goes, and it's much easier to get on. In terms of live video, but you know we're enormously thankful for our YouTube followers, our YouTube viewers. But in between YouTube and Facebook Live generates twice to three times as much engagement and viewership with our videos as more than YouTube. And plus, YouTube does have a problem with trolls. Now, to our fortunate luck on the Codex Prime podcast, we've never had any real issues with like racist and sexist, like every ist online troll, except for that one episode we did with the UWO. But again, that's part and parcel with YouTube, unfortunately. So, and plus, given the fact that I'm actually going to be talking about a film, or rather a mini series that just came out on Netflix that is rather powerful, rather incendiary, that would equal guaranteed troll fodder on YouTube, and I'm not willing to deal with that noise ever again. So what did I have to do? Yes, Eddie, welcome back to the dark side. I had to log back in using the Codex Prime podcast at gmail.com email, and I had to set up a brand new Facebook account with my name. However, that being said, my Facebook profile is strictly a platform for me to get on the Codex Prime podcast Facebook, because I did this for y'all. You know what? As far as our viewers and listeners go, you're welcome. I did this for you because I care about this podcast, and I didn't want to take my chances on the troll haven that is YouTube. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna create a new profile. I gotta use my name because I tried using Codex as first name, as Prime as last name, but then Facebook said, well, you got to use a real name, a name that people call you in real life. So I had to use my real name. But with that said, my Facebook profile is super private as it can get on Facebook. So don't at me, don't friend me. As far as you're concerned, I'm still not on Facebook. You don't see me. Well, you see me on doing Victor's Corner. As far as Victor's Corners go, and as far as a Codex Prime podcast go, that's when you see me. Anywhere else outside of the Codex Prime podcast Facebook page, I'm not here. We've never met. I'm John Cena. You can't see me. Okay, so as long as we have that agreement, we're cool. My profile is not real to you, therefore it doesn't exist. Boom. I just blew your mind. So yes, yeah, Gabe Jackson is here. Yes, Captain Buzzkill is back on Facebook. So who knows? I might show my face again on the Wrestling Fantasy Warfare, or definitely on the UWO. Speaking of the UWO, you can catch them later on tonight. They're going to be talking about NXT. Also, Shannon Hartley, what's up? Great to see you again on the chat. And Kyle Chapman, the most diabolical hater, the side of the Mississippi. Welcome, my friend, on the chat. So, what are we going to cover tonight on Victor's Corner? Well, I do have a couple of film reviews for you. I'll be reviewing the films Booksmart and The Perfection. I'll also be talking a bit about NXT TakeOver 25, which took place last Saturday. I'll also give a review of When They See Us by Ava DuVernay, which is a powerful 4-part miniseries on Netflix. And I'll give my thoughts on some interesting headlines as well to cap off the episode. So before we get into the proceedings here, what's up, Brian? You can get yourself a pair of Studio Regent headphones. That's right. This is our sponsor here, the official sponsor of the Codex Prime podcast. Studio Regent headphones, 24-hour battery life, Bluetooth capable, studio quality sound. Ooh, you can listen to that crystal clear stereo sound and let it rub all over your body. Just go to studio.com and enter Codex podcast to get 15% off your order. And as always, free shipping in the USA. All right, here we go. So yes, we are back once again. So please don't. WFW is a little different now. Oh, that's too bad. But yeah, I do have some film reviews to drop on y'all. One is currently in theaters now, and this is a refreshing teen comedy. It's called Booksmart, and Booksmart is a new comedy, which is the directorial debut of Olivia Wilde, and it stars Caitlin Dever, Beanie Feldstein, and Billy Lord, and Jessica Williams, and this is a really cool film. It's a story about these two best friends, Amy and Molly, played by Caitlin Dever and Beanie Feldstein, and they're two best friends who are about to graduate high school. But these two students are very studious. They're 100% about their books, 100% about going to class. Homework is like what they consider their extracurricular activity. Their idea of an exciting evening is sitting down at home and watching Ken Burns documentaries, which, hey, good taste, because Ken Burns is one of the greatest documentary filmmakers out there. But anyway, they're pretty much about the books and not much else. And so while they're about trying to graduate with high marks, the rest of their graduating class, their classmates are about end of the year shenanigans. They're about to be free of high schools. They're about to hit up college or explore other endeavors. So to celebrate their upcoming graduation, the rest of their senior class, they're all about two things: parties and drinks, followed by more parties, followed by more drinks, followed by more shenanigans. Stuff that high schoolers, high school seniors, and budding college students get up with. But Amy and Molly, they're above all that noise. However, with graduation just around the corner, Amy and Molly realize that they've never had any real fun during their 4 years of high school. Like, they go to it's for them, it's like eat, sleep, schoolwork, repeat. And Molly, she's a type of stuck up chick that looks down her nose at the students that she deems, oh, you guys are just lazy, you guys don't turn in your work on time, you bunk classes, while I'm over here, I'm about my work, I'm getting my work done, what are you doing? And much to her surprise, the other classmates who are more about parties and their schoolwork, they're getting into good colleges and universities just like her. One kid says that, hey, I'm going to Stanford. Another kid saying that they're going to Yale. Another kid who was basically a stoner says that he's actually not going to college. And then Molly's like, yeah, I knew it. You ain't about that college life. The kid responds, well, I'm actually going to be working for Google, and I'm going to be making six figures. And then Molly feels mad stupid for turning her nose up at people. So her and Amy realize that they've never had any fun. They spent their high school years looking down their nose at people. So they decide to cram 4 years worth of fun, parties, excitement, and bullshit into one evening. So they decide to go party hopping throughout the night across town. And of course, wild shenanigans ensue. And yeah, stuff goes down, as they say. But looking at Booksmart, it's an outright hilarious comedy. It's fresh, it's witty, it's exciting. It goes in really unexpected and expected places at the same time, and it's definitely one of the most refreshing teen comedies I've seen. I would put it right up there with The Edge of 17, which came out in 2016. That stars Haley Steinfeld and Woody Harrelson, and I'd also put Booksmart with Superbad. Superbad was really hot back when it came out in 2007. So I would say Booksmart definitely belongs in that same canon of like great teenage comedies of this century. What I love about it is like there's like this great chemistry between Amy and Molly. Their dialogue and their banter, their back and forth is just completely genuine and natural, just like off the cuff. The comedic timing is on point. There's a funny another funny supporting character, Billy Lord, who's Carrie Fisher's daughter. She plays this weird, free-spirited, somewhat edgy girl who pops up at random places throughout the film from out of nowhere. She's kind of high on drugs half the time, and like you don't know what she's about. She's kind of hostile, but she's all about that party life too, because she's on the verge of graduating. Also, there's an interesting take on many of the other supporting characters in the film, like I said, they're not just a bunch of stereotypical, archetypes that you see from like high school teen comedies. Like they're actually, about doing, about their grind, as well. And the main crux of this movie is about all work and no play makes Jane a dull girl. So I mean you gotta party hard, you gotta party as much and as hard as you work, because one without the other is kind of dull. So you got to have that balance of work and play, that studiousness and ratchetness, if you will. And if you're looking for a really cool teen comedy, or just a really hilarious comedy with like a really great soundtrack, it's got tunes by Dan the Automator, Run the Jewels, MIA, Anderson Paak. And a whole bunch of other artists. Definitely check out Booksmart. Booksmart is a comedy that really deserves more eyeballs, and it's still in theaters now. So if you're in the mood to check out something that's hilarious, something that's witty, something that definitely bears repeat viewings, check that out. It's in theaters now. I would put it once again, I'd put it right up there with Superbad or The Edge of 17. So yeah, check it out, and let me know what you think about that film. Eddie Ortiz says that Booksmart is basically Superbad meets Hangover, but with chicks in the lead. I wouldn't go so far as to say Hangover, because keep in mind this is a teen comedy, so it can't go full R-rated territory. But I would say that it has elements of The Hangover, but I would say that Booksmart is funnier than The Hangover. So that's just my opinion. So yeah, that's one film. And the other film that I do want to recommend as well, it's on Netflix, and this one is a new film which was dropped just this past Friday, and it's called The Perfection. And The Perfection is a film directed by Richard Shepard, and it stars Allison Williams. You know her from Get Out and as well as Girls, Logan Browning, and Steven Weber. And in this story, Allison Williams plays this troubled musical prodigy named Charlotte, and in the beginning of the film, her mother passes away, so she kind of has some, she's kind of emotionally troubled, emotionally fraught, and so she's looking for Elizabeth, played by Logan Browning, who's this up and coming brand new musical prodigy who's like the talk of the town, and she's a star musician at their school, the same school that they've trained in. And so when Charlotte and Elizabeth finally meet, their encounter takes them to a rather unexpected and rather horrifying turn. And The Perfection is a film that is deliciously dark, and it's macabre. It's so messed up. It's the type of film that Carl would say it's a Victor movie. It's a film that treads in really dark, horrifying places that I really couldn't recommend to most people I know, because they'll be too squeamish to watch it, which is perfectly okay, because this film is it's all that. The Perfection is it's a kind of like a psychological horror film that kind of has elements of body horror. For example, there's a scene where one of the main characters vomits maggots and spiders, and that and it goes from there. That's just the start of the disgusting nature that the film unfolds. Also, there's some Black Swan territory between Elizabeth and Charlotte. You know, they kind of had this thing where it's like, okay, are they lovers? But what's Charlotte's angle? Because since Charlotte is played by Allison Williams, at first I thought that her character was kind of like her character Rose from Get Out, where it's like, okay, here we go with this white woman trying to take or steal the essence of this another black person, but the film doesn't go there, but the film goes in a rather messed up, rather nightmarish turn that, I can't really say without spilling the beans on the details of the film. But I will say that this is a film that it's really sinister. Uh, and I will say that I would recommend The Perfection for those who have a um, taste for the macabre, a taste for the horrifying. I would say, for more squeamish viewers out there, I wouldn't recommend eating before watching this film, or I would say go ahead and have yourself a meal while watching The Perfection. And try it out. If you have a cast iron stomach, then congratulations, you are someone of a heartier stock and constitution. But you know, with how dark and just bloody and grimy The Perfection is, I say that this film is deliciously grimy. It's just so juicy, and I would watch it again. I will take time to watch it again, and I might like it even more because it's my kind of film. It's right up my alley. It definitely rubs every one of my tail feathers the right way. So, The Perfection is on Netflix. Check it out if you're in the mood for something horrifying. And checking back on the comments here, Gabe asks in reference to Booksmart, which Hangover though? I would say part one. I haven't seen Hangovers 2 and 3, but I've heard that the sequels aren't as good as the first. Um, as far as Charlotte goes, yeah, he thought I switched to wrestling, but that's actually a good segue because I do have some thoughts on NXT Takeover 25, which took place this past Saturday, June 1st, at the Webster Bank Arena in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and this is the 25th Takeover. I can't believe it's been that many shows, but surprise, surprise. For those of you who are familiar with the NXT brand on WWE, surprise, surprise, it's another great show. And this event consisted of 5 dope matches, each of which got ample time on the card. So if you're a fan of the NXT brand, and if you're a fan of professional wrestling, and if you're not about that main roster nonsense with wild cards and Brock Lesnar, and Roman Reigns all up in your TV set, come to NXT. You know the scoop. So, with NXT Takeover 25, they kicked off with a banging match between Matt Riddle, the original Bro, versus Roderick Strong. This was a dope match. It was nearly 15 minutes long. I give this match 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was definitely hard hitting. Roderick Strong is just one hell of a crisp, snug athlete. Like what I like about Roderick Strong is that he has a way of making his offense look stiff and snug at the same time. And like from his backbreakers to his chops to his like ushigoroshi, it's like a combination brain buster shoulder breaker where he like drives his opponent on his knee. Matt Riddle came through with some hard hitting offense. He tried to hit him with the bro mission. Roderick Strong squirmed out of it, but then Matt Riddle ended the match by hitting Roderick Strong with another unique signature move, which he calls the Bro Derek, which is essentially the neutralizer. Gotch neutralizer facebuster that Cesaro uses sometimes. So Matt Riddle won that match. Definitely a 4.5 out of 5 star match. Definitely a great opener for a Takeover 25. The next match was also dope. Another 4.5 out of 5 star match between the Street Profits versus Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch. The Forgotten Sons, Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler, and the Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, the Fatal 4-Way for the ladder match for the NXT Tag Team Championships, the War Raiders, or is it the Viking Experience, or is it the Viking Raiders, or is it the Viking War Raiders Machine Experience. I forget what their names are this week, but the War Raiders vacated their tag team championships a few weeks ago on NXT. So since they're called up or called down to the main roster, so the NXT tag team championships were up for grabs for some brand new winners to take the belts. So many great spots in this match. I gotta say the real MVP of this ladder match was definitely uh, what's his name, Montez Ford from the Street Profits. Like, if you've seen Montez Ford, like, this dude has star written all over him. Like, this dude is a future single star. Like, if you've seen his frog splash, this dude has like the highest frog splash I've ever seen. Like, nobody has ups like him. He's got charisma for days, and like, I can definitely see him shining on the main roster. That is if they handle him correctly. And since he's also the husband of Bianca Belair, I can definitely see, Montez Ford and Bianca Belair being like a power couple if they decide to push them two as a dual act. As far as Angelo Dawkins go, I do like Angelo Dawkins. I'm glad that he's found his footing in the Street Profits. But as Eddie Ortiz said in the Codex Prime UWO chat, Angelo Dawkins is very much the Marty Jannetty of this tag team. So I don't know what you can do with Dawkins should Montez Ford strike it out on his own. But in any case, now the Street Profits are your new NXT Tag Team Champions. They're definitely going to be holding it down on the tag team roster. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they mix it up with the other tag teams as well. Also, like, I would not have minded at all if Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch won the tag team titles as well. I think they're a solid tag team. They're definitely a workhorse tag team, and I can definitely see them with the belts at some point in the future. Carl Byrd has just joined the chat. What up, man? And Gabe, you are absolutely right. There's a reason Angelo Dawkins has been in NXT for 7 years. I could definitely see him getting future endeavored if Montez Ford breaks off on his own. But who knows? Maybe Dawkins can find his footing somewhere else. Maybe AEW, maybe New Japan, MLW, ROH. I don't know, but we shall see. Maybe Angelo Dawkins will prove us wrong. The next match was for the NXT North American Championship, the Velveteen Dream. Ambiance, atmosphere, illumination, experience versus Tyler Breeze. Yes, Tyler Breeze is back on NXT where he belongs. This was a great match. This was a 4 out of 5 star match. Definitely solid offense between the Dream and Tyler Breeze. Looking at Tyler Breeze's NXT run before he got called down to the main roster, I've always said that Tyler Breeze was my number one reason why NXT needed a mid-card title. And because Tyler Breeze always came so close to winning the NXT championship. Like, he was always bridesmaided, always bridesmaided. Like, he was always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Like, he always came close to the gold, but never got it. So to me, seeing the NXT North American Championship in existence, I can definitely see Tyler Breeze getting a hold of that belt eventually, because I think that belt was made for him. And so Velveteen Dream, he's still the champion. He came out with that Velveteen swag with the braided mohawk, the silver blouse, the granny church gloves, the gold glittery tights, the white boots. It was complete swag. I have 3 words to describe Velveteen Dream's fashion sense and ensemble: fabulous. I'm through. Listen, yes. So, Velveteen Dream, you're still your NXT North American champion, but you can't. But hey, big ups to Tyler Breeze for holding it down. And I do predict that by the end of this year, we may see Velveteen Dream finally capture the NXT championship. I think he deserves it, and I hope with everything in my being that Velveteen Dream does not get called up to the main roster before. That is to say, I hope Vince McMahon leaves or steps down from the main roster which won't happen anytime soon. I do think Vince McMahon is going to die as the CEO of WWE. But until that day comes, Velveteen Dream needs to stay in NXT because he will wither and shrivel up and die on the main roster because Vince McMahon will not know what to do with Patrick Clark. So the North American champion experience is still here to stay. Dream over, baby. And welcome back, Tyler Breeze. So checking back on the chat here, Eddie Ortiz is chanting AEW. Yep. And the next match on the card here was the NXT Women's Championship match between Shayna Baszler and Io Shirai. This match was 3.5 out of 5 stars. This, for me, was the weakest match on the card. It wasn't bad by any means, but what I still don't understand, let me take off the Velveteen shades. What I don't understand is why they're keeping the Women's Championship on Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler has held the Women's Championship since last October when she defeated Kairi Sane. Now, Kairi Sane is called up on the main roster. She's with Asuka in their tag team. I don't know if they're still going to build Io Shirai to another, perhaps a no disqualification match, or if they're going to somehow include Candice LeRae in the mix, or perhaps they'll include Mia Yim in there as well, maybe like a fatal 4-way type deal. But I'm still unsure as to why Shayna Baszler still has the championship, because it's like, well, what exactly do you do with the Queen of Spades? I mean, she's pretty much proven that, yeah, she is the most dominant woman in NXT. But where does that leave like major call-ups like Io Shirai? I mean, are you gonna just let them flounder? Let them just like wrestle a few matches before getting called up to the main roster, before getting that NXT gold? I'm not sure. But I will say Shayna Baszler at this point, like, she's been ready for the main roster. I mean, she would definitely be able to fill the void that Ronda Rousey left, since, you know, Shayna Baszler is part of the 4 Horsewomen. So I could definitely see Shayna Baszler filling that role on the main roster, and I think that's where, at this point, that's where she should go, because there's really not much else she could do in NXT. So I do want to see Io Shirai with the championship. They got to pull that trigger soon. If not next time or next takeover, then when? And also you got to free that title up for other competitors like Candice LeRae, Mia Yim, Bianca Belair, because Bianca Belair is in some ways the uncrowned women's champion. You know, given her showing against Shayna Baszler. So it's going to be interesting to see where they take her and Shirai in the future. Carl said that Dream was actually going to be called Mr. Velveteen and be called to SmackDown, which, again, that shows you why Velveteen Dream should stay on NXT. And also, Gabe says that they're waiting until Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir improve. Yeah, I agree too there as well, Gabe. I think that they want to call Shayna Baszler up at the same time with Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir, but at this point, Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke, they're still really green. They're greener than my wall here, so they need a lot of seasoning and a lot of development and coaching before they can get called up to that main roster game. So if that's why they're making Shayna Baszler spin her wheels in NXT, then I can understand why that is. And then last but not least, in NXT TakeOver, you had the main event, which was a 5-star, 32-minute classic, clinic, if you will, between Johnny Gargano versus Adam Cole, baby. I absolutely loved their 2 out of 3 falls match at the previous NXT TakeOver during WrestleMania 35 weekend. This match was just as good. I mean, I can't really say that their first match is better than this one, or that this match is better than the other. They're both equal. They're both exactly on the same level. They're both 5-star clinics. Adam Cole, I'm really glad that they finally pulled the trigger with him. Adam Cole is now your new NXT champion. Next to Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole is now the second Grand Slam / Triple Crown NXT champion, having won every single championship, which was interesting because I didn't think that they would consider him as an NXT Tag Team Champion. But I think that the Undisputed Era went by Freebird rules, so and I think even when Bobby Fish was on the injury list, he was still considered an NXT Tag Team Champion, even though O'Reilly and Strong held the belts. But yeah, man, Adam Cole, man, he is definitely the future. I mean, if you look at his body of work in the last 10 years, like Ring of Honor up till now, like you'll know that Adam Cole is a bona fide star. He is a bona fide main eventer, and I will go so far as to say that if you were to compare, say, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa's series of matches to Kenny Omega and Okada, I will say that Cole and Gargano is to NXT what Jericho and Omega is to New Japan and AEW. So that I think those are the analogs there, where you have two high profile main eventers that'll always deliver every single time. These two could not pull off a bad match together if they tried. Like these two could literally stare at each other and you'll have like chants of fight forever and this is awesome left and right. That's how good these guys are. And as far as Johnny Gargano goes, yeah, I kind of get like a Sasha Banks type vibe with Gargano, because when you think about it, Gargano technically has never had a successful championship defense when he was the North American champion and the NXT champion. But still, I think with Gargano, he's the type of babyface where for him the appeal and the money, as they say, is in the chase. Gargano is the perpetual chaser. Like he's always about going after the gold, and seeing him with the gold is great. But seeing him chase the gold is even better. Whereas Adam Cole, he is just absolutely money, and you cannot mess up a good thing with Adam Cole unless you're Vince McMahon. So, but anyway, enjoy it while it lasts, because Adam Cole is your new NXT champion. I can't wait to see the banging matches he's going to pull off in the future. I definitely want to see an NXT championship match between Adam Cole and Kushida, because Kushida is one hell of an athlete, and I think those two can pull off a 5-star classic as well. Also looking at the chat here, Cole is fucked if he ever gets called up to the main roster. Vince will job him out to everyone. I agree. Johnny Gargano will forever be in the underdog role. Oh, also a good one, Jeremy. Adam Cole versus Ciampa. When Ciampa heals up, that's going to be a dope match. Gargano to 205 Live. Yeah, I think 205 Live, that would be a better use of his talents, because on the main roster you'll just be another face. Johnny Gargano can definitely be like the new king of the cruiserweights, if you will, on 205 Live, because he can definitely, hold it down as Johnny Wrestling there. John Haponic, shout outs to you, my friend. He said Gargano didn't win an Oscar, Suicide Squad did. Yeah, it did, but yeah, nobody cares about Suicide Squad because Suicide Squad is trash. That is until James Gunn will rescue it. Hopefully, he'll do better with part 2, or rather, is it going to be called The Suicide Squad? But anyway. But yeah, that's just my quick rundown with NXT TakeOver 25. There's also been some questions from some wrestling fans on social media as to which wrestling event in these past 2 weeks was better. Was it AEW Double or Nothing, or was it NXT TakeOver 25? If it was really up to me, I would say that I don't want to compare the two events because they were so good and like they gave you everything you wanted as a wrestling fan. But if I really had to choose between Double or Nothing and TakeOver 25, I will say that TakeOver 25 is the better show, because for me, TakeOver 25 was much more concise. It had 5 matches, and there was no wasted time whatsoever. And there was only one so-so match on the card as well. Double or Nothing, I would say Double or Nothing is a strong 4.5 out of 5, whereas NXT TakeOver, I'll give it a 5 out of 5 as well. So it's just like half a point difference at best. But that's just my view. So yeah, moving on into this Thing. Well, looks like we got some dueling chants here. Thank you, Brian Lopes. Dueling chants here between Eddie and Jeremy. Eddie is chanting AEW, whereas Jeremy is chanting NXT. So who will win? And Eddie Ortiz says "fuck WWE," a chant that we can all agree on. And so now we're going to be shifting gears here to another rather serious subject matter, which is the latest miniseries on on Netflix, which just debuted this past Friday, and it's called "When They See Us." And When They See Us is a brand new four-part docudrama miniseries by Ava DuVernay. Ava DuVernay, she's the director of such films as Selma, A Wrinkle in Time, her amazing documentary 13th, which is also on Netflix. Also some independent dramas like I Will Follow and Middle of Nowhere. And she's also the executive producer of the television series Queen Sugar, which is on the Oprah Network. And When They See Us, it's a four-part miniseries which is about the Central Park jogger case from 1989, in which a 28-year-old female jogger named Trisha Melly, she was attacked and raped in Central Park, New York City. And there were five teenage boys who were arrested by the NYPD, and they were forcefully coerced into making false confessions to the crime. And these boys, they became known as the Central Park Five. They were convicted in two separate trials in 1990, and they spent between 6 to 13 years in prison. They were falsely accused. This was a crime they did not commit. They had nothing to do with, but the NYPD pinned it on them, and they unfortunately suffered and lost years of their lives, years of their childhood as a result. And these five gentlemen, Kevin Richardson, Antron McCrae, Yusef Salam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise, they were innocent. Once again, they had nothing to do with this crime, but they were victimized by a systematically racist justice system that only sought to make an example out of them because they were black and brown, they were black and Latino youths. This so-called justice system always set out to make an example of them rather than doing the job of finding the actual perpetrator. So, which was a travesty of justice as well. So this four-part miniseries it's infuriating, it's deeply compelling, it's emotionally intense, it's heartrending, but it's also uplifting as well because these five gentlemen, Kevin, Antron, Yusef, Raymond, and Corey, they did see a happy ending. Fortunately, they managed to rebuild their lives. More on that later. This is a film that it's also it's an engaging work. Ava DuVernay did a brilliant job of directing this film. She directed it with such intelligence and such empathy, and such clear-mindedness. And this four-part series will hopefully generate some much needed discussion and will motivate people into actually trying to pursue some real positive systemic changes in our criminal justice system, which is so broken, especially towards black and brown people. And so the first episode of When They See Us, it deals with Kevin, Antron, Yusef, Raymond, and Corey as young boys. And they're arrested and they're interrogated by the NYPD. And this first episode for me was the most upsetting of the four. Because in this episode you had Linda Fairstein, who was this prosecutor played by Felicity Huffman, which is a rather interesting casting. And Felicity Huffman plays Linda Fairstein, who was this prosecutor who was so hell bent on making these kids pay for this crime, even though all the evidence did not point to them, even though there was absolutely no DNA evidence from any of the five boys. The times were really inconsistent with the time of the actual assault. The boys were nowhere near the site where the assault took place. But despite all of that, despite the lack of evidence, these boys were still interrogated, they were still tortured, they were still physically and verbally assaulted by the NYPD into signing false confessions to the crime, because you had these cops that were saying that, oh, just confess and we'll let you go home. They forced these boys to to speak without any legal representation. They even basically forced their parents out of the discussion. They kind of muscled them out. There was this one shithead cop during the interrogations who was like, who was playing the so-called good cop, who was like tearfully pleading with the boys, like, "Oh man, you shouldn't be here. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just say you did it, man. I'm here for you, man. I'm trying to look out for you." Like, that cop was a real shithead, just like trying to play on their fears and vulnerabilities. Man, I hated how the first episode unfolded, but that doesn't speak to the quality, but it just speaks to how I felt about how these boys were just railroaded. And what makes it even worse was that while these boys were ultimately sent to prison, you had Linda Fairstein, who knowingly falsified evidence, and she spent the better part of like 10 to 20 years selling books. She was like a true crime novelist. She was selling her books based on like crimes that she worked on, and she was making money off that while these boys were in prison. So that makes it even worse, you know? And also, you had episode 2, which shows the boys on trial. And so they're also on trial for this crime, but they're also judged in a court of public opinion. This episode 2 also features actual footage of Donald Trump, who actually called for the death penalty to be brought back in New York because he wanted to see these 5 innocent boys executed. He actually took out full-page ads in newspapers throughout the city, which says "Bring back the death penalty," and he called for these 5 boys to be executed. And even more insultingly, when the 5 gentlemen were ultimately exonerated, Trump actually doubled down on his remarks, and he said that, yeah, the boys deserve to be executed, and he didn't even apologize for what he said, which is equally distressing in its own right. Episode 2 was really frustrating as well, because you had another prosecutor who also participated in the case. She represented the city and the victim. This other prosecutor, Elizabeth Lederer, played by Vera Farmiga, she was a prosecutor who, as seen in episode 2, realized that, even told Linda Fairstein outright that, yeah, we don't really have a case here because these boys are nowhere near the scene of the crime. There's no DNA evidence at all. You can't link this crime to them, but she still decided to prosecute the boys anyway. So blood is on her hands as well. And watching this miniseries, I do want to take some time to shout out and to applaud the main cast of the series. You have Kevin Richardson, who was played by 2 actors. Each of the 5 gentlemen were played by 2 sets of actors, the ones as kids and the ones as adults. So you had Kevin Richardson, who was played by Asante Black as a kid, and Justin Cunningham, who was the adult version. You had Antron McCray, who was played by Khalil Harris as a kid, and Giovanna Depo, who played the adult version. Yusuf Salam, played by Ethan Heresy, and Chris Chalk. Raymond Santana was played by Marquise Rodriguez and Freddie and Miares. And last but not least, Corey Wise was played both as a kid and as an adult by the same actor, Jarrell Jerome. And Jarrell Jerome, you might have seen him in the film Moonlight as well. And Jarrell Jerome was amazing throughout this film. He really had the standout performance of When They See Us, especially in episode 4, where it shows him, which is the 4th and final episode, which actually shows his character Corey Wise suffer through the adult justice system, because at the time when Corey Wise was arrested and sentenced, he was 16 years old, so he was tried as an adult. And he was sent straight to adult penitentiaries, and the fourth episode definitely shows him in solitary confinement, just him being the victim of vicious assaults and beatings by other inmates. And the film kind of flashes back to like his time during prison, where he has conversations with his mother who tries to visit him. It flashes back further to his home life, where the one person that he could turn to was his trans sister, who was there for him as well. Jarrell Jerome, like he plays this character just full of raw nerves, full of like nervous energy. While he's in solitary confinement, like his mind just flashes back to times where he tries to relive some of the most positive moments of his life before the time he went to Central Park, before he got arrested, and you see his growth and his adjustment as this character. And man, I gotta say, like Jarrell Jerome's performance was absolutely captivating, and he definitely is a leading man. Like this dude is so talented that he deserves his pick for any project that he wants. Like he should take the lead for any project he wants moving forward. And I definitely would like to see him get more awesome projects down the line, because Jarrell Jerome is a great actor, definitely a new up and coming face that we should all pay attention to. Also, the supporting cast of When They See Us, they were equally strong as well. You've got Anjanou Ellis, who played the mother of Yusef, Sharon's Salam. You have Niecy Nash, who plays Dolores Wise, who's the mother of Corey. John Leguizamo plays Raymond Santana Sr. He had a great turn as well. And also you had Michael K. Williams, who played Bobby McRae, who was the somewhat absent father of Kevin Richardson's character. And then you also had, or rather, Antron's character. And then you had Kylie Bunbury, who played Angie Richardson, who was the older sister of Kevin Richardson as well. So the supporting cast in this film was equally as strong. They definitely did a great job of fleshing out their what they were going through as well, while their boys were locked up. And then you see the times where they do visit, where they do advocate for them, and try to instill some hope in them while they're suffering and being railroaded through the system. You also had episode 3. Episode 3 was definitely my favorite episode of When They See Us, is where the boys are released from prison, and then you see the adult versions of them, and they're trying to readjust into society. And this episode was a brilliant illustration of what felons go through once they're out of the system. Because when you're out of prison, you may be out of prison, but you're not out of the system. And what was so illuminating and yet frustrating about this portion of the miniseries is that it showed why ex-felons are so trapped, because it's so easy for them to go right back in the system, right back in a jail cell. So, for example, you had Raymond Santana, who's trying to find a job, and there's a scene where he meets up with his PO, his parole officer, and they meet up in this restaurant. And his parole officer gives Raymond a job application to fill out just for practice, and then he explains to him like what it means when you check off the box that says, "Are you a convicted felon?" And then his parole officer breaks it down further that, okay, you see that that cook over there in the restaurant that they're in. He points out that this cook that's preparing their food is also an ex-felon, and that if Raymond takes that job, and if they work side by side together, then Raymond can legally be locked up back in prison, because he's working with another felon, because that's considered deliberately associating with the criminal element. So if you work with somebody who's also an ex-felon, even if you have no connection with them beyond work, you go right back to prison. If you violate your curfew, you go right back to prison. And if you're trying to apply for jobs, it's so hard, because as a felon, it's perfectly legal to discriminate against someone if they're a felon. So if you can't secure a job, you're back in prison. If you can't secure proper housing, you're back in prison. So the system is just so it would be so comical if it wasn't so sad. Like it's designed to make sure that you go right back. That's why recidivism is so high. So it was definitely a very illuminating episode. So ultimately, when they see us is just so powerful. Like it's just so brilliantly directed. I think this is definitely, in my view, Ava DuVernay's best work to date. I really hope that more and more eyeballs get a chance to view when they see us. It's just such a powerful series. It's also an example of why the criminal justice system is so broken and why it definitely needs a reform. And it's so heartbreaking too, because when they see us, when you look at the details of the case, even though all of this happened in 1989, just 30 years ago, this could have literally happened 5 days ago. You know, it could happen tomorrow. And but also, like I mentioned before, there is a happy ending for these five because they ultimately had their names cleared, and they managed to sue the city of New York, but they managed to actually receive a $41 million settlement from the city just 5 years ago, back in 2014. So they had to fight for a whole other decade just to get some more real justice their way as well. So if you're interested, definitely check out When They See Us. It's on Netflix. I highly, highly recommend this series. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you're a fan of Ava DuVernay. And if you do watch When They See Us, I also encourage you to check out some other companion films as well. Definitely check out the 2012 documentary called The Central Park Five, by Ken Burns and Sarah Burns and David McMahon. That documentary is a documentary about the Central Park Five case, and it interviews the five gentlemen directly and their feelings about the whole situation, and how they managed to rebuild their lives after this whole ordeal. So check that one out, the Central Park Five. Also check out 13th, which is on Netflix, directed by Ava DuVernay, an excellent documentary about the criminal justice system from the end of slavery to now and the problem of mass incarceration. Excellent documentary. I can't recommend it highly enough. And also check out on Hulu another documentary, Crime and Punishment, which is a documentary about the abuses from the New York Police Department, and how there are several police officers of color who actually try to do the right thing by trying to reform the NYPD from within, and all the roadblocks and obstacles that come their way. So check out those three films while you get a chance, in addition to When They See Us. Can't recommend it enough. Whew. So now that we've gotten When They See Us out of the way, just want to transition and wrap up with some happier headlines here. So before I do that, I do want to give a quick shout out once again to our sponsor, Studio Regent Headphones. Once again, high quality, high fashionable headphones, 24-hour battery life, Bluetooth capable, studio quality sound. Just enter Codex Podcast to get 15% off of your order. And as always, free shipping in the USA. That's right. So now I want to wrap up with some interesting headlines that I really wanted to get to touch on these past few episodes of the Codex Prime podcast, but unfortunately didn't get a chance to because of Game of Thrones. Shout out to Aris and UWO as well. So, one headline that's been making the rounds here, to get into some nerd content, is that Robert Pattinson has officially been cast as the new Batman. So Robert Pattinson will be starring in Matt Reeves' The Batman, which is scheduled for June 25, 2021. So the film's going to be coming out 2 years from now. And Matt Reeves' film was originally going to star Ben Affleck, and it was going to be a continuation of the Batman Ben Affleck DCEU version. But this version reportedly will be a reboot of sorts for the Batman character. Robert Pattinson has signed a 3-picture deal, so he's going to star in his own trilogy of Batman films, a la Christian Bale. And what's interesting about this is that Matt Reeves' Batman is going to continue is going to drive the is going to emphasize the noir aspects of the Batman character. It's going to focus more on the detective aspects of Bruce Wayne and Batman because Batman is the world's greatest detective, but we've yet to see a film that really dives deep into that aspect of the character fully. I mean, we've had elements of that in the Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, but it'd be great to see a more traditional detective noir story with the Caped Crusaders. So I do like that direction, and I also absolutely love Robert Pattinson as Batman. Now I know there are people out there that are scoffing that like, "Ugh, well, Robert Pattinson, what, the guy from Twilight? Are you kidding me, dude?" People, ladies, gentlemen, if you don't know, do not sleep on Robert Pattinson. This dude is a fantastic actor. Like this dude makes such great choices as an actor. Forget Twilight. Like if you're interested in seeing the best of Robert Pattinson, what he's really capable of in front of the camera, I encourage you to check out the following films. If you have Amazon Prime, or if you have if you can check out the DVD or Blu-ray, check out his film from 2017, Good Time, which I also reviewed on the podcast a couple years back. Good Time is the best Robert Pattinson performance I've seen. He plays a complete New York City lowlife. He's on the run. He's trying to get money for his developmentally disabled brother. It's like a seedy, grimy crime drama, and it's so good. Robert Pattinson was just so phenomenal in it. It's called Good Time. Check that film out, and that film should make you a believer of what Robert Pattinson can do. I also encourage you to check out The Rover. The Rover is another Robert Pattinson film, which also stars Guy Pearce. It's like a dystopian film which kind of takes place in the Australian outback. That film, Robert Pattinson has a very interesting performance as well. That film should also turn some heads. He also gained some critical acclaim. Also, check out his interesting supporting performance in The Lost City of Zed, which stars Charlie Hunnam. Robert Pattinson has an interesting role in that as well. Also, Maps to the Stars. He also played a great supporting turn. And John Haponic, you are absolutely right. Heath Ledger was hated too when he was cast as a Joker, and now today, Heath Ledger is the most iconic Joker in cinematic history, at least in my opinion. But yeah, yo, Robert Pattinson, he is a proven actor, and what I love most about him being cast as Batman is that this will give the opportunity for independent and art house directors who want to cast Pattinson in their films to get the funding they need, as well as the attention. Excuse me, as well as the attention that they need for their smaller films, because you're talking about like smaller films that can't compete with the marketing might of your Avengers, your Disney flicks, your MCU films, whatever. Robert Pattinson is an art house darling at this point, and when you cast him as Batman, he's gonna open the door for so many interesting filmmakers out there, and I cannot wait to see what he's gonna bring to the table moving forward in his career. In fact, I'm really looking forward to some other films that just dropped this year in limited markets. Like for example, he has this science fiction film which just came out, which was directed by Claire Denis, called High Life, which received some very good reviews. I think it's currently playing still in New York and Los Angeles. I hope it does make its arrival here in Rhode Island, so I can have a chance to watch it. There's another film that he just did with Willem Dafoe called The Lighthouse, which was directed by Robert Eggers, who also directed The Witch, which is one of my favorite horror films of this past decade. So looking forward to that when that comes out here in Rhode Island as well. And last but not least, Robert Pattinson will also star in Christopher Nolan's next film called Tenet, which is scheduled for July 17, 2020. So that's coming out next year. And Christopher Nolan, like, that dude has never made a bad film. He has made, I believe, 10 or 11 films so far. He's on a streak. And if Christopher Nolan makes a film, I'm there already. And with Christopher Nolan and Robert Pattinson, that's a must see right there. So again, do not sleep on Robert Pattinson. Check out all those films I mentioned, and you will be convinced of his talent. You'll be a believer. I'm telling you. Also, thank you, Brian Lopes. He says, great show. Got to set up. The boys are on their way. So UWO is debuting soon. Also, I do want to wrap up with two more headlines here real quick. Tom King, who's the writer of the Batman comic book series right now, as well as Mr. Miracle, an excellent miniseries. Definitely check that out. And Ava DuVernay, once again, Tom King and Ava DuVernay, they're going to be co-writing the New Gods screenplay. Ava DuVernay will be directing the New Gods film as well. So when you combine the writing prowess of Tom King, the directorial prowess of Ava DuVernay, you're going to have some genuine magic. And I can't wait to see their take on Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, perhaps Darkseid and Orion on the big screen. Oh man, we are in for a serious treat. And for the record, like I said before, I absolutely adore the direction that DC Films is going right now between Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam. Like DC is really taking a positive direction where they're concentrating on standalone films that are interesting in their own rights. It's not building up to like this big ginormous shared universe. Just standalone films tells their own individual stories well. And the New Gods, like that's some serious like trippy stuff for a film. And when you got Tom King and Ava DuVernay at the helm, I mean, it's really a can't lose proposition. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some true magic here. And last but not least, Sonic the Hedgehog, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie has officially been delayed until February 14, 2020. So it's coming out next year on Valentine's Day. This was in response to the public outcry of the horrifying, nightmarish Sonic the Hedgehog design. So Sonic will be redesigned from the top down as I guess something closely matching the original Sonic the Hedgehog design. Now that's not going to be indicative of whether or not the film is going to come out to be any good or not. But I'm glad that the director of the film at least responded positively and said, "Okay, we hear you. We're gonna take some time to redesign the Sonic the Hedgehog character." Now I hope that this doesn't mean that the visual effects artists are enduring a horrible crunch period to get this character redesigned in time. But I mean, I will say that the Sonic the Hedgehog design, I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought it was pretty creepy. Like I said a couple episodes ago, Sonic the Hedgehog kind of looked like he should have been voiced by the actor who played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, because he looked that creepy. But yeah, you know what? Hey, maybe Sonic the Hedgehog will turn it around. Maybe it'll break the video game movies curse. I don't know. But if you're a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, hey, you tell me if it's going to be any good or not, because I'm not going to be bothering, wasting my time to see it. But hey, that's neither here nor there. So yes, we are an hour in, so that pretty much wraps it up for this week, for this week's episode of Victor's Corner. So once again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can catch all of our episodes on Facebook Live. As well as YouTube. We will upload our episodes on YouTube Live as well. But Facebook Live is the #1 destination to see all of our episodes every week on Wednesdays with the Codex Prime as well as Victor's Corner. You can also email the show at codexprimepodcast@gmail.com. You can also check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcasts as well. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and of course Facebook as well. So once again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Victor Omoayo. This has been another episode of Victor's Corner. Be sure to check out the UWO podcast, which comes on right after this. They're live. Check out their rundown of NXT Takeover 25, as well as some burials of the week. I'm gonna be chiming in on their chat as well, so that's gonna be pretty cool. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, we will catch you on the flip. Peace out, nerds.